We'll start our work session for August 4th. We can do reports. All I have is if anybody was out and about, got to see the Harrier come into town today. Out to the airbase, that was amazing. They did flyby after flyby, low level passes, hovering right in front of everybody from one end to the other, and then go from hovering to taking straight off and flybys over everybody. It was awesome. There were
I'm disappointed I didn't get a text to come outside and actually look at it.
Oh,
It's sitting at my desk
I
here.
don't know if you've seen, well, from here, it was,
uh,
it hadn't been out at the base, because the whole of Long Prairie, the whole port, everything was just packed with people. It was pretty cool, so. I guess it's gonna be housed here, they're gonna take off whatever stuff they have to take off for the military, and then it's gonna go out of service here, so it's last flight, it was pretty cool. All right. I have discussion items next, water rates,
Okay, I screwed this up 2 weeks ago,
let's do it.
so hopefully I've got it in a better spot now. Chelsea's gonna open up our PowerPoint, I'm gonna come and see if we can. For sure. I switched
That's
it,
perfect, but
but now we need to get it on the Zoom. There we go. Here, sorry. Okay. Now we've got this up and going. So this is the start of what I showed you last week, but we've changed it up quite a bit because. What I showed you last week or 2 weeks ago, the math just didn't work out. So I've got it now so that hopefully it's easy for everybody to understand and the math works out. So as of today, this is the base fee for water that everybody pays. It's a $15 for the meter. You can opt in to a leak protection program for $2.80. This, from what I understand, is a fee that we can't. What Kyle told us today is that we can't change this. This is a third party fee that we add on and then it's optional. But we wanted to present it here to show what the maximum cost would be. And then our sewer rate is $92.68. So 80% of our residential users are on this base rate, and I'll explain the others in just a minute. But 110.52 is what you get on your bill. Okay? And you open up your bill, it says 110.52, that's what you pay, that's water and sewer. Okay. Oh, Chelsea, I'm gonna have you advance my slides for me.
certainly do that for you.
Oh, there we go. The 5% increase in the water increases that we talked about are only on the base meter fee of the increase. So what I've got here is the 1504 is what is being changed or what is proposed to be changed. And then that change at 5% is a 75-cent increase, which takes it to 1579. So your bill ends up going to 111.27. Okay. Does that make sense for everybody? Yes.
So was that the change effective July 1st, or that's?
We have-
proposed?
That's the proposed. We have not changed anything because you guys have to do that by resolution. So we wanted to get the idea of what change you wanted to see. And we've talked about this. So this is just presenting the options. Okay. The first proposal was to do a 5% in July and then another 10% in January. That would be a total of a 15% increase. That 15% increase in January would work out to a $2.25 increase on our base meter rate and a total bill change of $112.78. Are we together on that?
Is that after the original discount?
That's the 5% plus the 10, so a total of 15. Okay. Now, during our budget committee, there was a talk about, should we just do the whole 18, right? An 18% increase makes it $271 on the base meter, and your bill goes to $113.25. Does that make sense for everybody? Where we came up with that? Okay. Those are the base rates. In addition to the base rates, we charge a consumption rate. This is where the difference is in the 80 to 100% of our users. 80% of our users are somewhere around there. Between 0 and 2,999 gallons a month, you do not pay anything extra. We give that to you for free. That is in the base rate. Okay. Only when you use more than 3,000 gallons do we add a kicker onto the base rate for your consumption. Okay. So currently, if you use 3,500 gallons, we add another $10.93 to that $110 base rate bill, and your bill is $120. Does that make sense how we come up with that? And then it goes up from there. I'm not gonna do the math on every one of those. If we add the 5%, that 5% not only goes to the base rate, but it also goes to the consumption. Okay, so that 5% takes that, if you're in that 3,000 gallons, takes it from 1093 to 1148, which is a difference of 55 cents. Okay. But it's only if you're in those tiers of consumption. So if you use less water, you're just on the base rate. The more water you use, the more that increases. Are we together on that? Okay. This is the 15%. So originally we talked about a 5 plus 10. This is what it would be in January. And that consumption difference is $1. Can't see that far away, $1.64. Okay, and that's on top of the base rate. The 18% is the same thing, but it's $1.97. And what I did on this screen is I added what the total bill would be, the base plus consumption, if we did the 18% increase all at once. Okay, so again, at 18%, if you're part of 80% of our consumer base who's only using 0 to 2,999 gallons of water a month, your bill would be that $113.25. If you go into the next tier, it's $125.16 and goes up from there based on how much water you use. Does that make sense now how we're getting that 18% increase into our structure? Now, the recommendation from the consultants that we had is that in order for our water utility to be solvent, we have to do an 18% increase every year for the next 5 years. Okay. And that's the same increases across these boards. Okay. But I want to go back to this just because that difference for most people is $2.71 this year for the majority of our customers. Okay. And just for, oh, I went too far. Just for, I didn't put this on a screen, but I have the information here. After 5 years, that base rate where most of our people are at, the total cost for their water would be $124.06.
That's with the 18%.
That's with 18% every year for 5 years.
So
As
this
long
is-
as the sewer stays the same.
As long as the sewer stays, but the sewer's not gonna stay the same, right? So that's, but I can only talk about what we have in front of us. Okay, does that make more sense than, forget what I told you 2 weeks ago, this is making more sense, and we have this for anybody that wants to see it.
Can you share the slides with the council?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Questions or thoughts or concerns? Okay. Based on what we talked about in budget meeting, in 1 or 2 more meetings, we've got to figure out what the public noticing requirements are. Staff will propose that we bring forth the 18% one-time increase for this year. Which would make your bills what the total column on the end here is.
So for most people, that'll be $113 and change, it looks like.
Yep. And that's a $2 difference or $2.75 difference than what they're paying now. And that's what I wanna focus on. We talk about percentages and it's really hard to see what that means in real world. And that's why I wanted to bring this to you, is to show you what the real world impact of the bill change and what that 18%. So you can go to your residents in your wards and in your areas and say, this is what it goes. If you're in this tier, this is what you're gonna pay. Yes,
So could we get comparative numbers to, our neighbors to like the north, south, and?
we had those in the report. That was given, if you'll give me just a second, I can give you some of those orally, I can represent them to you. But I didn't put anything up here. But in the report that was given to you 3 months ago. What we had in current drinking water rates. Where's the county one? I'm not good at finding these things on the fly. In the report that was given to us, we were given how it compares, and it really doesn't move the needle on where we're at compared to our peers. It doesn't make us significantly higher or significantly lower, we pretty much stay in that same, if I recall correctly. That same.
Yeah, but I mean, still, that's like comparing apples to oranges, I mean, that's like saying, can I compare my income expenses versus Aaron's? You guys are completely different needs, bills, so I mean, it's not. Logically, that doesn't really make sense, we have completely different needs from basically your quality in order to stay financially viable. So what RCAC has given us as far as input, for what we need to do, so we don't crash and burn in about 5 years. Is those are numbers we need to stick with regardless of what the neighbors are doing. That makes sense?
It does make sense, but I'm thinking of questions posed by the constituents. You know, I'm trying to come up with a rebuttal for, you know, feel like, well, we have paying, you know, if you lived in Lincoln City, you'd be paying this much. If you lived in Seaside, you'd be paying this much. So comparatively, I think it would be relevant, you know, in order to, you know, compare it to the multiple places. You're like, hey, we're lower than them still. You know, that's a good, you know, sales point.
Sure, yeah, no, and I agree, the problem is when we come out higher. So that's why I say really the most solid logic is regardless of if people are higher or lower, these are the numbers we need to stay. That's above water, but if we can cherry pick the lower ones, we could use those, as best as that.
The May 5th meeting has the packet with the water rate study, so all of that data is in there on the link.
Thank you. And then, so what's it do for, the other utilities that are using it, the other districts? Is it still the same percentage across the board for all those as well?
This is a rate structure for all of our water rates, not just for the citizens.
No different, it's the same.
Yeah, so I'm bringing up as focusing on our residential rates.
I know, I was just asking it as a,
Yeah,
cause that's, we've been through so much of that in the
we
past,
apply it across the board.
across the board. Okay. That's like. So now we still have to add the sewer to this bill, is that right?
No, this includes the sewer portion of the bill. As it sits, because you remember our base rate here
Oh, yeah.
of 110.52 is the water rate plus the leak protection plus the sewer. So that's why I wanted to get to what the total bill would be for the constituents. Now, in a few months, we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk about the sewer rate. And go through the same exercise of what the needs to make sure that our sewer utility stays solvent. for the next 30 years and what increases we need to do for the next several years to make sure that we're keeping up on that.
Do you know, Sean, have we used the leak protection? Have people been using it? Has it been a benefit around
Or the water line leak protection.
the, yep,
You know, I'd have to ask the girls, they kind of they keep in touch with the company that does that. There's been a handful that have, I would say a large amount, but some.
I was just curious if it's. Hey, thank you, yeah, good.
So I don't wanna insult your intelligence, but which I'm concerned about both. The water and the sewer, which piece of infrastructure is worse? In your opinion?
In my personal opinion,
Yeah,
well, obviously the sewer is put a restriction on what we can build everything east of the lift station. So that's impacting the community as far as housing, that's high on everybody's radar. But the issue with water is it purrs along until it doesn't, and then it's a real big headache. So our main transmission line, we're working on trying to get those repaired. But as we discussed, the original $12 million would not cover the cost nowadays, to get it all the way to tax. So sewer right now is on everybody's mind because it's not working. All it takes is one more big water main line break, and then water is not working, and then that'll be on everyone's mind. So we're trying to juggle both those. One's already blown up, one's gonna potentially blow up here in the near future. We're trying to mitigate both those things, so they're not both being blown up. Causing our town to be in a real bad spot.
thank you.
And Franklin can't have one without the other. They're both important to the residents, and those are both life safety, welfare issues that we have to maintain as the city.
All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm good. So like I said, what we're gonna do is once we figure out what the public noticing are for what we've talked about in the past, we will bring forward an 18% resolution to raise our rates here in the next couple meetings. Okay,
Perfect.
okay, moving on to the next one, if I may. We wanted to make sure we justified everybody's time for coming out for a short meeting tonight. So you're gonna be a little bit bored for the next 25 minutes, but it'll be okay. Part of my duties is making sure that everybody is trained efficiently, and I'm trying to learn how we do things in Oregon. And so we're gonna do some of these videos on occasion of training everybody on how to get things done. So this is from the League of Oregon Cities about efficiency in councils. And we need to get you two screens, that's the problem. Yeah.
No.
So let's,
Why?
yeah,
You can go over that.
yeah. So, and then in this browser. Open payment. So it's so out of our hand, you know. That's fine, I just need to be able to see it.
It's downtown. I was just saying, sorry, people shower and not. Yes, but it's. Said buses. I don't know.
Oregon cities are the council managed form of government. The council manager
And we
is
should just
one
go
of the
ahead and play,
comprised of these
and hopefully we'll get some
individuals.
audio in here. Is the volume up on these two guys? Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's black, but. They have any better.
I don't think so. Oh, they're red, look out.
Hi, I'm Robin Klein. I'm Assistant General Counsel with League of Oregon
They're
Cities.
too quiet.
cities, and we're going to talk about roles and authority of a high-functioning council today. Most local governments in Oregon cities are the council manager form of government. The council manager form of government is comprised of these individuals: city council, mayor, council president, city manager, city staff, and citizens. Most people started off in their communities as citizens, and then they may have held one or more of these positions within the council manager form of government. Where you find what form of government your city is going to be in your charter. The charter is your city's constitution. Each of the 241 cities in Oregon have home rule charter authority. So their charter dictates what form of government they have, as it's their city's constitution. The governing documents that help determine what your role and responsibility is going to be found in your charter, your rules of procedure, resolutions and ordinances, and potentially even employee policies. Specifically defining the roles and responsibilities of City Council as a whole, it really works as a centralized power of authority for the council as a whole. In the charter, you will find what your quorum is. What a quorum is going to be the required minimum number of individuals on City Council to move city business forward. A majority of quorum present will be what actually moves a city business item forward. As a centralized body, legislatively, they can create laws of the city, or ordinances, or code. Additionally, they act centrally together to set policy and make the vision of the city possible. They do that by setting goals, either annually or multi-year goals. They also do that through strategic plans, comprehensive plans, and land use plans. Further, in the charter, there will be limited hiring, discipline, and firing authority that's found in the charter of who the City Council actually has oversight over on city staff. In a council manager form of government, that individual, the city manager, is going to be one of those individuals that the City Council has authority to hire, discipline, and fire. But there may also be individuals such as a city attorney, a municipal judge. It may also include fire chief or police chief. It's all going to depend on what is actually in your charter as to who the City Council has authority to manage. Lastly, as a City Council, they have sometimes authorities to do things administratively or quasi-judicially. When I talk about limited administrative duties by council members, that's going to look like, let's say, granting or denying a permit. There's going to be already set criteria in which the council is looking at whether or not an applicant for a permit meets those criteria that are already set, and then they determine whether or not, administratively, to grant that permit or deny that permit. That differs from when the City Council may be sitting in a quasi-judicial authority power. When I talk about quasi-judicial, it means that the council is not acting legislatively or administratively, but rather they're almost being a judicial authority. What that may look like in some communities, there's a planning commission that makes a land use decision. When that decision is made, one of the parties may appeal it up to the City Council. The City Council is then, instead of acting in a legislative way, making a decision, they're going to be reviewing the Planning Commission's decision, and that is a more judicial arena that they will be governing in. Mayors generally are the face of the City Council. Again, mayors typically have a clause in the city charter that designates the roles and authorities that they have. They're the public face of the community. They represent cities at events. They're the City Council spokesperson. Often within the City Council meetings themselves, they are the presiding officer. They're charged with keeping order, setting agendas, appointing committee members, signing documents related to public meetings. And often they're also the chief facilitator, both between city staff and other council people. They facilitate discussions between councilors, as well as dialogue between council and the city manager. Also found in your charter is going to be a clause on the council president. Generally speaking, I think of the council president as a substitute mayor, and so they are acting mayor when the mayor is absent. Sometimes in a charter, they have to be elected by the city council annually at the first meeting, for example. One thing to also note if you are council president is to check your charter as to whether or not you retain voting privileges when you are acting as mayor in your council president duties. Moving to city management generally. So when I say city manager, that may also be city administrator or city recorder. Those three terms are often interchangeable when we're talking about the city management generally. Each city uses a different term within their charter. So if I use one of those three terms, that's what I'm talking about in city management. What the city manager role and responsibility is could be found in the city charter, and additionally, it may be fleshed out additionally in city council rules of procedure, ordinances, or resolutions. They are the ones that are offering policy support to the council. They're going to make sure that the policy and strategy decisions that the council has elected to move forward with happens. They implement that policy. They are the ones to have staff oversight. Let's say there's a deputy city manager. That position is not going to be mentioned in the charter, and that individual will be oversighted or managed by the city manager themselves, not city council. City managers are also responsible for quasi-judicial adherence to the statutes in Oregon, their charter, and any adopted policies. Think of the city manager or city administrator or city recorder as the chief executive officer to the city, or the CEO. They are managing the city and its personnel. They're doing recruitments. They're doing hiring, supervising, and terminations of city employees that are not mentioned in the city charter. They are preparing the budget and overseeing its preparation for the council's and budget committee's consideration. They're responsible for ensuring the council's vision and strategic plans are brought to fruition. And also think of the city manager as a chief advisor of policy to the city council. They're going to bring objective information about local operations. They're going to bring reasoned analysis and assessments of the benefits and consequences of city council actions, and they will be making policy or staff recommendations for the council to consider. They are a chief advisor as far as policy goes to the city council, whereas the city council is going to be the final decision makers for the general city policies. This is a great infographic as to how both city staff and elected officials work together for the governance and policy process. You'll see on the left that council sets the larger picture policies, mission, goals. They want results. They're going to be setting the general policy. But then the administration somewhat is working on the right side of this infographic. They're taking that policy and they're administrating it and they're managing it. But it does take both together to work to have governance be successful. So now that we've explored the roles and responsibilities and the local governing documents on where to find those roles and responsibilities, you need to think of both your city staff and your city council as a team. Think of it as a sports team. You need to have everyone know their positions. They need to know the strategy. They need to know when to show up to the games and practices. They need to work together to be successful in winning the game that they're playing. So we're going to explore the remaining items on this slide for habits of highly effective councils or teams. Specifically, the city council and city staff need to think and act strategically. What this looks like is the policy big pictures, goal setting, comprehensive plans, strategic plans. You need to know what the existing items are in your city, and then you also need to make sure that you're revisiting them and you're working together in the current group setting to make sure that they align with the overall and overarching goal of that group and team, and make sure that it's clear as to what the vision and mission and values are. Next, you need to understand and demonstrate teamwork together. What does this look like? Well, if you first look at what a group definition is versus a team definition is, the main difference is a group is working independent of each other, and each member has a different set of tasks. Whereas a team is really consisting of interdependent behavior, where people are dependent on one another, share responsibilities, and are judged as a collective. So how and what are the principles of a team? First and foremost, the shared goals. We've talked about thinking and acting strategically. And so that shared goal, what is the long-term vision? What is the policy that you're setting long-term as a city? Those are the shared goals of the city council and city staff together as a team. What that also means is that the outcomes of decisions that that team makes or that council makes is going to have to require shared ownership. So even if you are one member of a council and you are the minority voter and you potentially lose a vote, you have still participated in the decision-making process of that team where you have learned information, you've heard and shared your ideas, there's been deliberation, there's been public comment, and there's been a vote on how to proceed. So even if you are that minority voter, and you must share in that ownership of process and result for it to really become a team dynamic. In tandem with shared ownership, everyone must contribute. Everyone must also express ideas and opinions. These two work together because in a, let's say, public meeting where you are contributing and expressing ideas, each individual on that council, if they are heard and they share from their learned and lived experiences, is not only going to help the collective of that council and staff know where you're coming from and how that decision was made, it's also beneficial from the perspective of the citizen or the constituent that is participating in the public meeting. They too are a part of that public hearing process. It's important that no person feels threatened by conflict. Now, it's inherent within local governing that there's going to be conflict. There are difficult decisions that must be made. There are budget decisions, there are project decisions, there are all sorts of conflict that can arise with how to govern a city. And so it is important that no person feels threatened by this conflict. And it can be developed in that team dynamic, mainly through the presiding officer, making sure that the meeting is facilitated well and that everyone expresses their ideas and opinions, but that decorum is held, there's respect that is garnered and offered, and that no one feels threatened by feeling by expressing and sharing their opinions. The atmosphere of trust and encouragement must also be present for a team to really develop and thrive. And through that, we've talked about participative decision-making. What that means is that essentially everyone knows the council rules of procedure of how public hearings must go forward, public meetings must go forward, and that everyone is sharing their ideas with respect and with important communication skills. It's important when building a team to make sure that you have effective communication skills and you're also employing those communication skills towards others. And you do that through respect of both city staff and fellow councilors as well as your constituents. Having goals together as a team is probably one of the more important items. That's why we talked about setting a strategic plan and goal setting. Having a shared goal as a group is going to transform you into a team. And you may need to pick up knowledge along the way to really be a contributing member. There's different ways to garner knowledge. Not everyone knew everything about how local governance operated. So making sure you attend conferences, you will learn from other counselors and city staff, as well as potentially publications from the LOC website on certain topics. Those are all ways to garner knowledge that can help you in contribution to help your team or city council move forward in a positive direction. Effective small group decision-making is what city councils are all about. You've got a small group of people, sometimes as few as 2, sometimes as most as 12, all going to be a small group decision that needs to be made. How do you do that? You clearly define processes for making decisions. City Council Rules of Procedure is going to be one of the greatest assets in having those clearly defined processes in place, making sure that each member of the group identifies strengths and weaknesses and improves where they can, and that through that process, the group is supporting the collective goals that were shared and set as a group. Moving on to consistently evaluating policy implementation. It's going to be important as a team and as a council for you to evaluate the policy choices that have been made before your time and what decisions you have made as a team moving forward. What does this look like? It's going to vary from city to city. It may be something as simple as a newsletter or a survey that's sent out. It could be information at a town hall or coffee chat with the mayor. These evaluations are important check-ins for the team to know how to move forward and changes to make. It's also going to be important for exploration and analysis as a team. What does this look like as a city council? It's going to be your work sessions. Those are the best places to learn information, ask questions of experts, and collectively learn about one of the important decisions you're going to have to make in a public meeting. Which brings us to the disposition and legislation. That's going to be your public meetings. That's going to be where you make your votes. As a council, that's where you're going to have public comment. And then allocating time appropriately related to community relations. This also is going to be similar to evaluation step before, where you have surveys and newsletters and where you have interfacing with your constituents. Another thing to note for appropriately using your time is going to be virtual public meeting tactics. It's now time where we're all familiar with virtual meetings. So here are some suggestions on how to improve your public meeting skills virtually. Make sure you test the tech before the meeting occurs, and make sure that you're arriving early to resolve any tech issues that are likely going to arise. Make sure you understand the policy for muting, as well as how to remain muted. Introduce yourself both in your profile as well as the start of a meeting, and make sure that if you wouldn't do it on the dais in person, you wouldn't do it on your virtual attendance of the public meeting. That brings us to Council Rules of Procedure. Your local jurisdiction may have adopted rules of procedure that you need to familiarize yourself with. They may need to be reviewed and amended, and that's something you as a collective city council can choose to revisit, review, and amend as needed. But you need to know what's contained in those rules, as they're how the rules of your meetings go. It sets expectations for the public as far as public comment goes. And it's important for the presiding officer as well as councilors to apply and follow the rules equally at each meeting. That helps have respect of the process, both from the council, city staff, and your constituents. It's very important to seek objective assessments. This is not only going to be at each election cycle of whether or not each councilor is elected or not. It's also going to take the form of surveys, newsletters, potentially video updates. These objective assessments may look different city to city, but it's important for you as council, as a team, to get feedback from your constituents as to how you're doing and what can be improved moving forward. We've already talked about continuing education as a core component of developing a team dynamic. This looks at identifying your role. So we've talked about checking your charter, checking your council rules of procedure, checking ordinances or resolutions, and possibly employee policies to identify the scope of your role. Also, what skills are needed and how do you develop those skills? Things like elected essential, municipal fundamentals, small city meetings, LOC conferences. Those are things that you can use to develop skills, both with learning from others that are similarly situated in your elected position, as well as experts that are teaching courses on core concepts of municipal governance. And then learning as a group. That's important for the continuing education component. Learning as a group will help you not only know information together and gather information together, it's going to empower you to become interdependent. Resources for high-functioning councils are going to mainly be found in your charter, council rules of procedure, ordinances, resolutions, adopted policies, and don't forget about LOC publications, specifically the Oregon Municipal Handbook chapter. All of these things can help you develop how to become a high-functioning council.
I know that that's remedial 101 for 90% of us, but I wanted to make sure we set the foundation of what we were trying to accomplish.
Welcome to our Friday legislative, Friday, June 20th.
You're good.
For the LOC, so that.
We'll watch that one too.
I already did.
Too.
Yeah.
That level.
Thoughts and comments on essential training, ways that you probably already knew all of that.
Just had a question on the use of media. Look, we're broadcasting this live now. If people are online, it said something about having names up, so if, is that a requirement that they have to have their name?
Mhm.
In order to be a part of the meeting?
Just like when somebody comes here, we ask for their name and where they're from and who they represent. It's the same principle
So if they
online.
don't wanna put their name up there, then they don't get to participate.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we just started, we switched from Teams to Zoom. So that we now have a lobby feature on the meeting. So anybody that wants to join electronically, we put on our agenda to let us know in advance. We will send you that Zoom link so that you can join, but we can message them and say, you know, make sure your name's on your stuff or on your profile, and then we can see who you are, and then we can choose when to let them into the meeting and when to keep them out, so we're not getting Zoom bombed from people that just wanna be there, right? And when we put them on YouTube, we do lock the comments down so that we're not having to worry about the online comments inside of those in real time. So we just don't have the ability to do that.
Would that go for in-person attendees? Are we? They don't want their name on our camera? Just gotta figure that out.
As a public meeting in a public place, there's no expectation of privacy. So if you come to this room and sit here and sign in as if you want to give your 3-minute speech at the beginning of the meeting, we do expect you to tell us who you are.
Sign up sheet, of course.
And we have the sign up sheet so that we can make sure, and part of that, counselors, so when Chelsea works on the minutes, we have to identify this person spoke on this topic. Any other questions on that?
Yeah.
So,
Can I ask one other question, Mary?
yeah.
I know these are boring. I get it. Are there topics that you want to learn about that we can seek out to help educate you as we learn and get as a group to use this time to the best, so that we're not rolling our eyes at the boredom of.
Can you give us a list of topics that they offer?
Sure. We can do that. So right now they have like open meetings, they have one on, I can't remember off the top of my head, but, communication strategies and stuff. We have stuff through CIS on some different topics, but we can go outside of the league and get, if there's a specific topic that you guys wanna learn about, we can bring information in on those too.
Yeah.
I don't have recognition, he does.
We'll get, oh, sorry, I was looking.
So I wanna learn more about like the, synthetic. Like pipe that's pumped into pre-existing pipes. And
Sneeze?
yeah,
Okay,
that's what I want to learn about, cause I was talking to Adam about it, he said that was. Really a cost effective way of fixing our laterals.
it can be.
I wanna learn more about that.
Okay, we could definitely find a YouTube video or a local expert that can talk to us about how that works and what the difference is and pros and cons of it. Just remember on topics like that, we want to tie it to a potential policy directive, right? So how I would put that is, if we're looking at doing an ordinance on our sewer laterals and updating our standards, that would be the time to bring that expert in and say, this is the options that we have. Do we want to consider this as part of our ordinance that we're going to amend or enact?
Send us some ideas.
Okay,
And then we'll, everybody go. Look it up on your own too, see if you have.
yeah,
Sounds good.
okay.
All right.
8 minutes.
All right, with that, we'll wait,